Welcome to a very special Galileo monthly update. We're really privileged to be talking to Andries Van Heerden, who is the CEO of Afrimat. I'm going to give Theo a chance to explain a bit more after this now, but I just thought before we kick off, I'd like to explain why we're talking to Andries, and particularly for me, why I'm so excited. Full disclosure, Afrimat is the only share that my wife and I own in South Africa, so no pressure, Andries. But in my view, and I think certainly Theo and I share this, Andries is one of the best CEOs of a listed company in South Africa, and certainly unusual nowadays in that he's been the CEO of a listed company for a very long period of time. And the success that Theo will explain now, I think, becomes self-evident as to why we're so excited to talk to him. But for you as our clients watching this, the message that I wanted you to take out of this was to hear from someone who is literally working in the real economy of South Africa, dealing with the infrastructure of our country and dealing with government in various forms. And the kind of rollout of our infrastructure, both in commodities and on roads, etc. Why Andries is doing what he's doing, and I think it's a great story. And also maybe just to give a different view. I think we're overloaded in South Africa with negativity in the media, and it's certainly not our job by the end of today to kind of paint a false picture of the economy or paint a false picture of our problems, but just sometimes to understand that there are real opportunities in South Africa, and people that are awake to those opportunities are doing great things in our country, and Andries and his team are certainly fall into that category. So I know I'm talking a lot, Andries, but before we let you loose, Theo, would you mind giving us some background into Andries and Afrimat?
Yeah, let me just thank you very much from my side, Andries. Just a few interesting points. 5 years ago, Afrimat's share price was around about 30 Rand. In the meantime, we had COVID, we have the crisis in the Ukraine, and today that share price is close to 66 Rand. So it doubled in the past 5 years, and that 5 years is not 5 years that anybody would say is a great 5 years. It's actually a 5 years with a lot of uncertainty. If you look 10 years ago, headline earnings per share around about 50 cents. Last reported closer to 9 times that. So in the last 10 years, earnings per share, headline earnings per share from 50 cents went to 4.50 Rand. That's 9 times what it was over a 10-year period. In 2017, Andries got the distinction of being honored by Ernst & Young as the World Entrepreneur, winner of the World Entrepreneur of that year. So I think it's a great pedigree, a great history, but I'm going to take it slightly back, Andries. When you were 40 years old, you were unemployed. Things went horribly wrong with where you were. You were completely unemployed. And today, Afrimat has a market cap of just below 10 billion Rand, 9.7 billion. Just take us that start, that setback, that actually at 40 unemployed, and today it's a business worth almost 10 billion Rand and one of the star performers on the JSE. Just take us through that.
Yes, Theo, thank you very much. The saying says, there's a saying that says no good deed will ever go unpunished. So what happened in 2000, and it actually goes back to 2003 when I worked for a little company called Prima Quarries, and then in 2003 the new mining charter was published, and the whole drive for black economic empowerment became a reality. And I convinced the directors of Prima to be first, and we actually did a very, very, very good BEE deal in those days. And Luigi Dotwana, who was the BEE partner, is actually our shareholder, one of our shareholders, and on our board of directors to this day. So that actually opened me up at the time for some strategic opportunities in the quarrying industry. I came together with a mentor of mine. We came up with the idea of consolidating a whole lot of family businesses and solving their BEE problem for them, and a whole lot of other challenges at the time that they had with new legislation. And then I put an idea forward of what is now Afrimat. I took it to my bosses at the time. Although I was the managing director, so-called, in a family business, that doesn't actually mean much. The owners still remain the bosses. So they initially liked the idea. Along the way, they got advice from a very clever lawyer that nobody will ever buy a share in a quarrying company, and it's better to get rid of these dreamers and focus on getting the job done. So that's how I got fired. So they got advice from a lawyer that didn't believe in the idea. They thought this lawyer was very clever, so they fired him. And then I went with my mentor at the time, and we bought one of the companies that would have been part of the original consolidation, a little company called Lancaster Quarries and Lancaster Precast, which was actually a little group based in Vryheid in KZN. We bought the company with a fully leveraged buyout. Very, very interesting deal we did there because I had no money. And we then bought the business, started operating. And at the time, John Wern of WG Wern then listed his company called WG Wern on the Altex and proved the lawyer wrong because his share price did extremely well in the days. And then my ex-bosses from Worcester phoned me. And although initially I didn't want to talk to them, eventually we did overcome our differences. And we merged Prima and Lancaster and formed the company called Afrimat from African Materials. The name comes from Francois de Toy, who was controlling shareholder of Prima, and myself from Lancaster. I believe the new business should be Lancaster, and he said it should be Prima. And then a wise guy in the meeting said, let's go for a neutral name. So that's how Afrimat was born, from African Materials. Yeah, so that's how it all started.
Well, let's just start with that. Afrimat is a business, as Warren said, that's key to the South African almost nuts and bolts of infrastructure of those areas that we need to work for South Africa to work. Give us a synopsis of the group and of the company, just to give us an idea where it fits in the economy.
So we started off as a construction materials company. The old Prima and Lancaster were both quarrying companies. We did a few acquisitions in the early days in that space, and we consolidated to become what is today the biggest supplier of aggregates in South Africa. And then after the worldwide crisis, and especially after 2010, we realized that the construction industry in South Africa was in for a tough time. And we then diversified. We took our core skill, which was open pit mining at the time, quarrying, and we bought a few limestone mines, and dolomite mines, and even a silica mine. And we developed a industrial minerals cluster in our business. And then after Nene Gate, we decided we needed to expose ourselves to other currencies, and then we bought a small iron ore mine, which was in business rescue. We turned that around. So, and then also about 2 years ago, we bought an anthracite mine. We are busy with a manganese project and a project where there's phosphate and rare earths in the deposit. So it's a widely diversified business that is currently trading in aggregates, lime, dolomite, silica, iron ore, anthracite, and soon it'll be manganese, vermiculite, rare earths, and phosphates from the Glenover business. Widely diversified, and we play in the what we call the mid-tier mining space. So it's too small for the big guys to really be interested in these deposits, but too complex almost for the small, let's call it emerging miners. You know, they battle to have the right sort of skill set. So we've built the right skill set from geology to mining engineering to metallurgy to be able to do this. So it's a widely diversified business.
Well, Andries, if I take you, let's say, a synopsis, if you look at your business, which is lock, stock and barrel in the middle of the South African economy, there where the real economy happens, if you were to compare the Zuma, first of all, the Mbeki years, when we were growing at 5% 2006, 2007-ish in their own road, where we had a few years of more than 5% growth. The uncertainty, state capture in the middle of the Zuma years where we were to today. How would you describe that and the difference in doing business over those periods?
I think we started, as I said, we listed the company in 2006 under the name Afrimat. And that was at the height of the construction boom. And looking back, that was really, really easy. You know, you literally had to make sure that you've got product on the ground and somebody will buy it. And it was a little bit of a logistics challenge to get all your raw materials on site quickly enough to get the products out and things like that. But it was a relatively easy time to do business, and even from a legislative environment, it was simpler. It was just, in my view, and it's always easier. You know, I have a colleague that always says, the older I get, the better I was. And I suppose the same goes for time. You know, and the longer ago it was, those days were better. I suppose that's true, but it was easier. Then going into the dark ages of South Africa was the Zuma era. We had ministers of mineral resources that you actually actively tried to remain as far as possible under the radar, because the moment you got attention, somebody would try and steal your mining right, or something strange would happen and things like that. It was a really bad time and very, very difficult at the time to do business. And being small and being under the radar at the time was very, very good. And then let's say after 2017, 2018, we've seen a change. There's a lot of areas. I think it's much easier to work with the Department of Mineral Resources now. There's more authenticity there. There's a genuine desire to help from time to time. And we've worked on the relationships over the years, but you need. It is more difficult to do business now. But right now, as we speak, the quality of opportunities and the number of opportunities is just mind-boggling. It is amazing. If we could double the human part of the capacity in terms of intellectual and skills capacity that we have, we can grow double as fast.
So there's an underlying confidence in that. A large part of the government's growth plan is built around public-private partnerships, and it gets a lot of publicity around the principle that private capital, and it's almost if you look at the SONA by the president, the details in the budget by the finance minister, there's a realization that the public sector cannot create jobs, nor can the public sector create economic growth. And that implies there's a mind shift, and the specific wording is according to that, but it also implies that there needs to be a space created for private capital to get involved with government. Now I'm going to ask you, Andries, I'm going to ask one question, but it's twofold. Number one, the principle of PPPs or public-private partnerships, do you believe in that principle? And the second question is, what needs to happen for that principle to unlock private capital?
Your first question, just being pragmatic, if we look at what's happening at Transnet at the moment, if we look at what's happening at many municipalities and a lot of other things, if we cannot get PPPs to work, we're doomed, because we've lost so much skills in all these different SOEs and the government departments on the execution level, that if we don't find a way for partnerships, we're doomed. And I can give you, if we have time, if you want to, I can give you one or two examples of, on a smaller scale, where it's working right now, where things are being turned around because of partnerships between public organizations and private organizations. What needs to happen, the capital is one thing. The real thing that we need is skill. I have had interaction with three very prominent CEOs in the last 2 weeks, And 3 out of 3 of them said that the biggest challenge in South Africa right now is skills. And the problem is, for instance, in some of the SOEs, let me not be too specific, the wheels are literally coming off because people don't know the basics. They don't do basic maintenance on equipment that is critically needed. For instance, in a company like ourselves, although in the bigger scheme of things, we're very small, but we've actually focused for the last 15 years to build real skill in certain areas. And the big thing to get PPPs to work is for government to accept that the private sector, and within proper governance and making sure that we stay away from the corruption that creeps in so very easily. But somehow we need to take, as private companies, we need to take the initiative. Now, there are opportunities. There's an opportunity in the Northern Cape with the mineral wealth we have in the Northern Cape, but we can't get the stuff to the harvest because of the reasons we know of. But there's an opportunity to build Buchelbaai Harbour and to build a new rail line. And in terms of the country, it's only 50 billion rand, which is a lot of money, but for a country, it's not so much, and it's easily fundable. But we need somebody that actually knows how to do it and doesn't have the one meeting after the other and the one committee after the other, but actually gets a project team out there and get some feet on the ground and get things done. So, I get quite passionate about it because I see the opportunities. And behind the scenes, we are right now, one of my colleagues, one of our directors, are talking to one of the SOEs today about how we can help them with overcoming a serious maintenance problem they have, which is impacting the minerals industry. What needs to happen is for private industry to actually make the skills available and the know-how available so that these things can get done.
So, Andries, I'm desperate to hear some success stories. You were saying that there are some of these PPPs that are actually already working on the ground, and it would be great if you could share those with us.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether I should call it a PPP. It's a cooperation. For instance, one of the small things that I think that, and it's very early days, and I hope I'm not going to swallow my words in a couple of weeks, but we all know that cable theft is a massive problem for Transnet. So there's a company that is very heavy, and I don't think the CEO would want me to mention their name, so I won't. But it's a very big company, and they're a big consumer of the services that Transnet offers. They've now contracted private companies who actually patrol the railway line that they use with drones. And he told me the other day that 3 hours after the first drone took off, they caught the first cable thieves. And on the lines that they are patrolling with these drones, cable theft has gone. There's no cable theft on those lines right now because it's impossible for these guys to. These drones pick up the heat of a person, locks in on it, and this person can run the way he or she likes. This thing follows them until the security guys catch them. And literally within days, cable theft on that part of rail was stopped. I'm sure there will still be some complications, but the point is there's a private company that got in there, they have the right technology, they have the right skill, they have the willpower or the will to make a difference, and all of a sudden one of our big challenges on the domestic rail line seems to have been solved. We'll see. It's very fresh. It's literally in the last couple of weeks that has happened. And I met up with that specific CEO just in the last few days, and he was very excited about how this could change our businesses because we've solved the problem.
Unreal. And Andries, I mean, I don't hear from what you're saying now and in the past, I don't hear you kind of looking at our country and deciding to slow down or just concentrate on specific projects. It feels like that if you have enough hours in the day, you'll take on more and do more. And so what is it about our country that gives you that confidence to carry on?
I think it's a couple of things. Firstly, I love the country. I think all of us could probably very easily go and live anywhere else in the world and do something else. We choose to live here. We want to be here, which sometimes I wish the politicians want to understand that. So that's the first thing. It's just maybe call it naive, call it whatever, but I can see that we can make a difference here. Afrimat created 500 new jobs last year. That to me is satisfying, although we were punished for that because we had 9,500 applications. So 95% of the applicants were unhappy, and they showed their unhappiness with burning tires and a whole lot of other things. So you do get punished for good work as well. But so that's the one thing. Secondly, I'm thinking who it was that recently said that it's much easier to make 17 Rand in South Africa than to make €1 in Europe. There are fantastic opportunities in the space that we play in. We have a business development department, which is, some people would call it an M&A department. And we are just overwhelmed by the number of opportunities that's being offered to us every day. So, and looking at the scoreboard, Afrimat, Theo spoke about how the company has performed over the last couple of years, and I'm very grateful for this. And this is just to put it in context why we're investing in South Africa. So please accept that I'm not trying to brag here, but we've seen a compound average growth rate in our after-tax profits from February 2009, after the 2008 crisis, to February 2021, which is the latest set of numbers that is publicly available. Our compound average growth rate in after-tax profits was 22.5% per annum over that period. If we look at the entire life of Afrimat from the day we started in November 2006, so from February 2007 until now, the compound average growth rate is just over 16%. I think it's 16.5%, if my memory serves me right. We sit with a very strong balance sheet. We have a very good cash generation. But on top of that, we have people in this business with skills that is absolutely world class. And all of these things together, the opportunities in this country is just amazing. So, this is what we do. This is what we love. And it works for us. So, and we've burnt our fingers in Mozambique. We burnt our fingers in Tanzania. So Africa is a very different place when you go north of our borders. We have not been able to find an opportunity where we can get a proper return on our capital in the first world. A lot of people would like to go to Australia, New Zealand, Canada, all these places. The problem, in my simple view of looking at things, is our capital cost in South Africa factors in a significant amount of risk. So capital cost is much higher. In those countries, the risk is much lower. So to take money that you generate in South Africa or that you get in South Africa and try and invest there, that return on capital sum has never worked for us.
Okay. Amazing. And just listening to that success, I mean, I know you don't participate in the bragging story. So just to congratulate you, I mean, it is an amazing growth rate in a time when the JSE's often gone in the opposite direction, and people in the broader, let's say, whole mining and construction sector have closed their doors. You're growing at that growth rate. It is something to be really proud of. And the question will be, how is it that you get this right? What's the secret sauce within Afrimat that makes it work when lots of companies around you, you mentioned some of them, are no longer in existence? And how did you get it right?
It's a lot of blessing. We were very blessed with the right opportunities at the right time. Three things that I think that's different to many other companies. Firstly, is our view of strategy. Strategy does not mean hoping for a better future and trying to flog a dead horse. So if you realize that construction materials are going to go into a difficult time, getting to commodities and get into industrial minerals, whatever. So over the years, we did not stick to one thing, but we tried to be innovative, but within our core skill. So that's the first thing. The second thing, and probably the most important enabler, is people. We've really worked very hard over the years to create a specific company culture. And, we've been driving right from my desk right through the organization, a specific company culture that is based in essence on excellence with integrity. And that culture is very important, making sure you have competent people, but then once you've got the right people, giving them the autonomy to be able to do their job. I always say you don't buy a dog and then bark yourself. So give the people the autonomy, but create a culture where you can trust people and know that they are trustworthy, and that there's consequences if you break trust. That's one of the worst things you can do in Afrimats. The quickest way of getting fired is break somebody's trust. But if you make a mistake, that's fine. We work with mistakes. And then the third thing is an attitude. I had early morning, I had breakfast with one of our young, talented people that is down here for his MBA, and I just wanted to sort of get a sense of where he's heading with his career. I was talking to him about, they're having the same problem. You could arrive here and see something that is wrong within one of our systems or whatever, and you can have an attitude to say, these guys are, everybody thinks they're so great, but look how stupid they are. That's one attitude. The other attitude is to say, hey guys, here's an opportunity, let's make it better. And that's the type of attitude you would find in our passages. There's a saying here, there are no big jobs, just small machines. So guys have always got some sort of a plan for it. And I think those three things: people, strategy, and attitude is what really helped us to grow the business.
And it's the depth of talent within your group now. I think a lot of the time people tend to overemphasize that it's one person that's the reason for an entire organization's success. And listening to you over the years, I think it probably was 100% true in the early years. But certainly nowadays, I think you have built an enormous amount of depth within the organization. And do you find it difficult to retain that talent?
I'm a little scared to answer the question because I think it's a little like playing golf. The moment you think you're good at golf, then that's the day you have a bad day. So with that being said, we have a very, very low turnover rate of people, and we've been able to attract the talent that we wanted. And over the years, I've found that more important than financial means, people would always ask me, how do you lock your people in? That our exco, our entire exco works on a 30-day notice contract without a restraint of trade. The whole exco. But to be appointed on our exco, you've got to shake my hand, look me in the eye, and say, you'll never stab me in the back. And I've never found anybody that has gone against his own word. But I found a lot of people that have found loopholes in contracts. So retaining people is about giving them a challenge, stimulating them, making them feel wanted, making them feel that they're making a contribution, and yes, rewarding them fairly. If you underpay a person, he is going to leave. But the big thing is about the challenge and the excitement and being part of things. Sorry for carrying on like this, but I recently spoke to a CEO of a big company that's really battling to get his people back to the office after COVID. So they asked me, well, how's your business? I said, well, we've been back in the office since August 2020. And there were certain people that we considered high risk if they were, for instance, our payroll people, if they all would have COVID at the same time, having a problem with your pay could cause a lot of problems. So we forced them to alternate, and they were unhappy because they wanted to all be at the office because this is where things happen. This is where the buzz is. So it's really about creating a culture where people want to be. Then you don't have to You pay them fair, but you don't have to lock them in with money.
Andries, I want to take a step slightly on that same position and perhaps take it a bit back, link it with your own career, and also link it with what you said about this morning having breakfast with a young MBA. You noted mentors in the beginning of the discussion. You talked about a mentor that you have, but you feel very strong about the principle of mentorship.
Yes.
Both in terms of your own personal experience and why it's so important for you, and also the principle of why you put so much emphasis on it.
For me personally, I grew up, I always joke, and whenever I get into trouble, I say, you must remember, I grew up in Randfontein on the West Rand, so that's always my excuse for being dumb. But I grew up in a certain environment. My dad was a relatively junior person on a mine. And the fact that I had specific mentors, and I've mentioned in previous years ago, I don't know if you can remember, Theo, you had a TV program, and I mentioned 3 specific mentors on that program, which was my older brother, who was later a professor of economics in Potchefstroom, Marty van Wille, who is still to this day our chairman, who was my first boss in Eastcore, and Laurie Korsten, who was married to my cousin. And the 3 of them really taught me a lot, and together with them, with my parents. So, you don't know all these things. And I suppose I never had the self-confidence that I had all the answers. So I was never afraid of asking these people, because I knew they also had my success at heart. So to me, I would not have been half what I am today if I didn't have these mentors. And we actually have mentorship programs in our organization now to help these young people, especially in the South African context, where we bring in people that are coming from backgrounds out of townships, out of really difficult circumstances, get into our work environment and to really do that. And one of the very interesting things are that we find that those people, especially people from previously disadvantaged communities, if we have these mentorship programs, and they stay. So the whole thing that these people, there's a little bit of a theory among some people that these people, the moment they become successful, they start moving around. We don't see that because of mentorship, and people actually have these role models that they live up to, and things like that. So it's difficult for me to say in words, but it's such a powerful thing. And if more people can just realize 2 things, we all move around and people look up to us, and if we realize how important it is for us to model the way, and then the next thing is to be open, like I had this morning. There was no reason for me to get up a little earlier so that I could meet this guy for a very early breakfast, so that he could be in class in time, because his classes started at 8 o'clock, and then we had to be finished. So we have to do these things, and to me personally, it's just a way of giving back. There were people that were willing to invest when I was young and didn't exactly know what I was doing. And maybe, who knows, the next guy that starts, the next Sir Ernest Oppenheimer might be working for us.
Andries, I've got some difficult questions for you now, but before we get there, one sort of tricky one that's bothering Theo and I quite a lot in South Africa is watching the number of companies delisting from the JSE, quite a lot of those CEOs saying they're not necessarily seeing value anymore from being on the stock exchange. And what's your experience at the moment? Your thoughts on that? I don't want to get you into trouble with the JSE itself, but is it something that you have a view on?
I always say there are 5 reasons for listing. The first is to create credibility, and I'm looking from where I was a co-owner of a small private company. So it gave us credibility of our shares. It gave us a currency to do acquisitions with that is sometimes better than money, because especially if you have a good growth rate in your share, that becomes a powerful currency. It is a way to raise capital, although we've never used that. It is for shareholders, and I'm looking at some of the founding shareholders that are now retired, although that does sometimes frustrate us. But the fact that the JSE is overseeing the governance, does give shareholders the peace of mind that there's somebody looking, although it's not that effective, but it does work. And then lastly, and probably the most important one, and it does sound a little funny, but the stature, the fact that we're a listed company gives me the ability to pick up the phone and speak to the CEO of Kumba or the CEO of whoever. Which, if we were a small private company, or similar size private company, I might have found it a little bit more difficult. And the other thing about the stature is also the number of opportunities that are being offered to us is because of something like this, where somebody might be listening to this and realize, I have an opportunity and I want to take it to these guys. And that's where many of our opportunities come from. So do the JSE frustrate us? Yes, they do sometimes. But is there value in it? I think there is. And we're not close to delisting yet.
Yet. Thanks, Andries. So when going through this, we always want to kind of show two sides of the story. And the one question for you is, what's the worst business decision you've made in your career?
I took my investment away from your business at one stage. That's probably the worst investment. But personally, that's my worst investment decision.
Thank you for saying that.
And in business, we bought a small quarry near Lanseria Airport, and we bought 66% share in the business for R1. That's the most expensive deal I've ever done. So I would rate that as probably one of my worst. There was also a little quarry that we bought near Scotborough in KZN. We still own it. Never made money. It was a mistake. I shouldn't have bought it. The problem with that business is it took so much effort to turn that mess around, and the return on effort was so low, and the skill that you needed to turn that mess around actually created a mess in our backyard. So I think fortunately it was smaller mistakes, but Scotborough and Lanseria is probably the worst decisions I ever made. And both of them, you'll hear that I use the word I. I drove both of them.
And on the other side of that same coin, if I had to ask you for your best decision in business so far?
Yeah, I think going into commodities, we and there I use the word we. It wasn't only my decision. We realized that we needed to get into something that gave us a much better return on effort and that has much more growth potential. And the commodities space at this time is where the action is. So yeah, if I look at the thing today, and I think it's not business decisions, but the decision to build on certain individuals. There are people in the business that, and I'm careful to mention names because there are so many of them, but there are a few people that years ago, I realized there's potential in this individual, and got them close to me. And those people on the exco, almost without exception, putting the trust in them and allowing them to grow. I think that was probably the best business decision to build that. You were talking about the skills base, and right from the get-go, from the word get-go, we always worked as a team, and we had the whole team thing very strongly, and we tried to build on each other's strengths. But over the years, that culture has become so ingrained in the business that we would, the complexity over the years have grown. And if we didn't invest in the best talent and making sure that we had the right people in the right seats, we would not have been able to grow. I think that was the best decision that we ever made, is to invest in people.
Thank you, Theo. I've got my one final question, so I want to wrap up on that one. So before I do, any more from your side?
Yeah, I just have one question, and it's something that you said in a previous discussion. You noted a key element is to you need to make the right decisions and then do the right thing. Those two elements has got much more around it than just to identify the right thing and then do the right thing. How would you go about describing those elements in terms of both priority and decision making?
I think the critical part is priority. I was reading that Jeff Bezos said recently that you get two types of decisions. You get one-way decisions and two-way decisions. If it's a two-way decision, in other words, it's relatively easy to reverse the decision. It's not so difficult. You can be a little bit more, you can take more risk and a little bit more brave and go for it. When it's a one-way decision and you really have to make it, be very, very careful and make sure that you do all the work carefully. So, if you came to me now and you said there's a small quarry for sale somewhere, I would probably, I'll try and learn from Lanseria and Scottborough, but chances are we'll make the decision on the same day. You came to me now with another Gravenhage or Glenhover, which is in our terms, it's the peak funding of those projects can exceed R1 billion. For us, that's a lot of money. I'm going to probably take 2 months to make that decision, because we're probably going to do modeling and a lot of work on that. So it's about priority, making sure that you spend the time on the right stuff. We have to decide what color bucky we're going to buy for a mine manager. Just buy whatever you can get. You need to decide whether you're going to go into manganese or chrome, then spend the time and get the information. I don't know if that answers the question.
Do the right thing.
The one thing, Laurie, your original mentor, one of my original mentors, he always told the story about, how do you make the right decisions? And he would say, well, I suppose it's experience. And he said, how do you get experience? And he said, make the wrong decisions.
That's it from me.
Thank you, Theo. Andries, my favorite question to ask people with experience is, if you could meet your 21-year-old self now, what would be the lesson you would like to impart to the 21-year-old Andries?
Yeah, I think the importance of actually working in teams, surrounding you with the right people, and making sure that you're also making a difference in their lives. It's not about you. It's about them. And I think that's probably the one lesson that the sooner you can learn that in life, the better for yourself, in my view. But if I really look at my life, I've had an extremely blessed life so far. There's not the mistakes that I made, and there were some really stupid mistakes, but I've actually learned so much from them that I actually would make them again, because otherwise I would not have learned. So there's not a lot that I would have changed, but the moment I really realized the power in teams that are really teams, not a buzzword, but really, if you read the book Legacy on how they think about teams and things like that, the moment I realized that, that's when And I all of a sudden realized that you can leverage your own input 1,000 times.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. And Andries, we're coming to the end of our time, and I thought if there was something that you wanted people on the call to know that we haven't asked you yet, I'll give you the opportunity now.
I think the one thing that we as South Africans must try to do, we've become so good at pointing out the bad, and there are a lot of negative stuff out there. But if we, and if the three of us just think of our collective skills that we've developed, and we really offer that to build this country again, we can make this country a powerhouse within 1 decade. And the one thing is, we must work on our attitudes. It's just so critical.
Yeah, I can't agree with you more. On that note, I think to me, a sign of true genius is taking really complicated things and making them seem simple. And that's what I mean, just listening to you on this call, that's the thing that you do. You say these you drop these pearls of wisdom on us in a very simple sounding way, but the complexity behind that is phenomenal to listen to. And so I really appreciate your time. Thank you very much for sharing your expertise and your history with us and your wisdom. I know you're going to say that none of that's true, but it is. That's our objective view. And so we appreciate it very much. Thank you, Andries.
Well, coming from the two of you, I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Andries. And thank you for spending the time with us. I found it insightful, and I'm sure that all the viewers and all our clients will find it as insightful. Thank you very much. And thanks for the openness about sharing not only the principles of the business, but also the culture underlying your success. I think that it's a wonderful message. And yes, we've become specialists in complaining, in finding the things that are wrong. We should actually become specialists in finding opportunities that will take us forward much better. So Andries, from my point as well, from my side as well, thank you very much. I appreciate your inputs. Thank you.